Today's the day. You've got that vet appointment for your cat Fluffy, and Fluffy really needs to get to the vet because something's wrong with her. But there's a huge problem. Both of your kids are home sick with that flu that's been going around. Now, how are you going to manage that? Does that sound familiar? Or how about this one? Today's Fluffy's vet appointment, and you are just dreading it. Fluffy hates the car, she hates the vet, and she gets totally stressed when she goes to the clinic. It's your worst nightmare. In today's episode, Dr. Katie Eick joins me. Now, she's the founder and owner of Rollin Vets, and that's a mobile vet clinic. These days in the world, it's just really busy. Now, just couple that with a couple extra chores. It just becomes darn near impossible to get those things done. Do you remember those old doctor house calls? Well, I want you to think about this. A house call for your pets. Sounds extravagant? I don't think so. Wait till you find out the many advantages of having a vet come to your house. Now, I know you can probably come up with a couple of them, but I'll bet you after today's episode, you're going to find several more that you just didn't think about. I was really surprised at the many things that Dr. Eick talked about, and you're going to find out that the cost really isn't that much more than what you're normally paying when you take everything into consideration. Now, I really enjoyed this episode because it covers a lot of topics and options that I hadn't really considered. I think you're going to like this episode because I surely did. We are supported by PrepVet, providing stem cell therapy for pets.
As a pet lover, did you know your pet can benefit from the incredible healing power of stem cell therapy? Prep Therapy offers a groundbreaking solution taken right from your pet's own blood. Say goodbye to joint pain, arthritis, kidney and liver conditions, and more. They'll experience faster recovery, increased vitality, and extended quality of life without the need for surgery or harmful drugs. Put the wag back in their tail and discover Prep Therapy today at prepvet.com. Save 10% with promo code FurRealPodcast, covered by most pet insurance.
For real, 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 for real. Got a bunch of furry friends and I love them all the same. I'm an animal lover, veterinarian is the name. Let's share some pet stories from heartwarming to strange, losses and gains, from wacky to insane. For real. You're now tuned in to For Real with your host, Mark Kyle.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the For Real Podcast. Today, I've got a really good guest that I think everybody's going to love. I had the pleasure of meeting her about a year ago, and talk about somebody you really want to hear some stories about. She's got a great business, been a vet for a long time, but please welcome Dr. Katie Eick. And Katie, I'm so glad you took time. You know, for you guys that are out listening, we're in Texas, we're a bunch of weenies, but we're complaining because it's cold out. So for us, we're working. I don't know about the rest of the world, at least in Texas. But hey, Katie, thanks so much, and I can't wait to hear your story.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I'm really glad to be here. Yeah, I'm sitting here. It's 30 degrees in Houston, and with a fire going under blankets with sweaters.
Well, I wish I was talking to my son, called me today to see how I was doing because my house is older and I don't have a lot of insulation. And I was going, the one thing I wish I had in my house was a fireplace because I would definitely have that fire going today.
Oh my gosh, listen, I keep this thing on almost all year round because it's a gas fireplace. So I can just come in and turn it on.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny because I'll be on calls, right, with video calls, and people are like, "Is your fire on behind you?" Yep.
Oh, it's funny. My son said the same thing because he's down in Townball down by you.
Uh-huh.
And he says, I love our fireplace here because it's a gas fireplace. We can have it all the time. The exact same thing today.
Yep. Just turn it on. Love it.
Okay, so let's dig into this a little bit. So you've got a mobile vet company, but let's start from where you were before you did it, how you got there, the whole backstory too, because everybody wants to hear that. And for you guys that are listening, this is something you should pay attention to because there's a lot of benefits to having a mobile vet. So your story, go ahead, Kate.
There are, yeah. So I'm going to take you way on back.
Cool.
So I am not one of those people who always wanted to be a vet.
Oh, really?
No. From 8 years old, I was going to go and be a plastic surgeon.
Huh.
Like never wavered. Going to go to medical school, going to be a plastic surgeon until my senior year. So I went to Emory undergrad, graduated from Emory University undergrad in Atlanta. In my senior year of college, I got the opportunity to work at Yerkes Primate Center. And now in high school, I was obsessed with mountain gorillas. I saw gorillas in the mist, and then I'm obsessed with these mountain gorillas. And so when I got to work at the primate center, I worked mostly with chimpanzees, and that is a story for another podcast that is more for X-rated because of what my job was there. But um, just suffice it to say, I worked in the reproductive biology department. So I'll let people make their own conclusions from there. But I did get to work with some of the gorillas that were on loan at the zoo, at the Atlanta Zoo. When they would come back to the primate center for whatever reason, I did get to spend some time with the gorillas. And I mean, just in love with the gorillas. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to go to vet school. And I called my mother and told her that I changed my mind. And she said, well, I've been waiting for 13 years for you to tell me this. Of course you're going to vet school. Like, of course, because I'm always saving slugs and spiders and cats and geese and whatever, falls into the
Right.
yard. So go to vet school. While I'm in vet school, all the civil unrest started in Rwanda and Uganda. So that completely changed the trajectory of my career, which is fine. Went to Virginia, did mobile practice there, but large animals, so ambulatory, cows, mostly cows, beef and dairy, some horses, things like that. And then started my career in small animal medicine. After that first year out, I've been a small animal vet ever since then. And I opened my own practice in Virginia, in Roanoke, Virginia, in 2005. And I'll never forget the day that a friend of mine also had a practice across town. She had bought a mobile vet unit from LaBoite and drove it over to my practice. And I already did a lot of house calls for, older dogs, euthanasias, cats that didn't want to get in the car, things like that, but just out of my car. And she drove this truck over, fully outfitted clinic on wheels. And I thought, that is the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life. And just never forgot it. And so I always kind of wanted to add it to my practice, but I was a solo practitioner. Like, it's hard enough running a brick and mortar. I knew there was no way I could do that and do it well. And so I thought, okay, if I ever open another business, it will be mobile. So fast forward to 2010, I got too cold in Virginia, divorced my husband, sold my practice, and moved to Texas. And that is why I'm in Texas. Literally, I'm not kidding. I was cold there, and I'm like, where can I go that it will be hot and I can still stay in this country? And my choices, were basically Florida and Texas. I'm like, I'm going to go to Texas.
Well, let me just add a couple things here. First off, you may be the first vet I've ever talked to that didn't want to be a vet their entire life. You probably knew, your mom knew you knew, but you didn't know.
My mother knew. Yep. I was very focused on, I'm going to medical school. I'm going to be a plastic surgeon, very focused on it, and kind of didn't ever even consider anything else until working with these primates. I thought, oh my God, what am I doing?
So, couple things. One is I've been to Rwanda to see the mountain gorillas. I don't know if I told you that before.
Literally I'm jealous. I'm so jealous. I may have to hang up now.
And the way they do it too, it's amazing because they only let you be there with them an hour, but it's the longest hour because you're so amazed the entire time.
Mm.
It was probably in the top 5 or 10 things I've done in my life. That was one of the things I did. It was amazing.
It is still on my bucket list. I mean, I'm sure it's life-changing.
Are are you familiar with the group down in Florida to save the chimps?
I am not.
Okay, so there was a thing in the news about, oh, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, and it was this chimpanzee, it was the world news. This chimpanzee, it was a picture of this chimpanzee looking into sky and pointing. And the backstory of it is that it was the first time this chimp, since maybe it was a baby, I don't know, it'd been in a lab all its life, and that's where they rescued him from. And he saw the sky and was blown away.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I've actually been in touch with them. Matter of fact, I just this morning heard from they had a vet there, and they had left, and she's new. And as you know, I do stem cell therapy, but
Yep.
I've been actually talking to them about donating it with them. And I'm going to get back. We're going to talk. She just got started, so she's just kind of getting her feet wet. But hopefully in March, we're going to talk about potentially treating some of the older guys there that probably have arthritis or something. Well, my deal is part of the deal is I'll donate it, but I get to come there and see them. Is really what I want to do.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We had so while I was there, they had a bonobos colony as well as a chimpanzee colony. The chimps were hilarious in certain ways, but also they really are incredibly strong. Like most people don't understand how big an adult male chimpanzee is. They think, the little chimps that are dressed in clothes that's a chimp.
Right.
It is not. I mean, an adult male chimpanzee is a 400-pound beast, with arms that are like tree trunks. You hear these stories about people trying to keep chimpanzees in their homes, and the woman, who got her face taken off, and these awful, awful stories. And,
Right.
these are animals they are wild animals. I don't care if they've been raised right with humans. They have different language systems, and they can be dangerous, and I think that a lot of people just don't understand the severity and how big and strong these animals are. I loved working there. I never got to be like in with them, right? I got to interact with them through a chain link fence.
Right.
But even still, there were protocols that you had to do, because if you had a ponytail, they could grab that ponytail and rip your hair out,
I don't have that problem.
Yeah.
But, so I'm excited. I'm glad you said that, because I got the email from her. We've been going back and forth for a while, but I got the email this morning, and I was thinking because we do a blood draw, and I was thinking, I don't know how much they weigh, because I was thinking, is it the same as a big dog? So it's kind of between a dog and a horse, is
Oh,
basically their weight.
if you're talking about adult chimps, you're talking about, yeah. Now the females are not quite as big, right? But they're still, I mean, they weigh more than I do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're gonna do the same amount. Basically, I'm just thinking stem cells, but you're doing what as a human being, basically, it'd be the amount we drop. Literally thinking about it this morning, literally today. That's so funny we're talking about
Yeah,
this.
it'd be if you're working with adults, yeah, it would be. So but, and what I got to do with them is hilarious, and I have really funny stories. Like I said, it's a little bit, probably more X-rated than this needs to be, but there's some funny stories. And my boss at the time, his name was Jeremy Dahl. I'll never forget him. He's English. And he came in one day and he said to me, "Does your mother know what you do for a living?" Like, yep, he does. Very proud of me.
I can only imagine one of my daughters. My youngest daughter's a big monkey person too, so she would love it. But if I'd heard the story too, I'd probably be thinking twice as well.
Mhm.
So we digress. Let's get into what we're here for. But I could go on forever for this stuff. So anyway, you've met your friend that's got a mobile vet. You've seen that, and you decide to move to Texas to get warm, except for today.
Yep, I moved to Austin, actually, and lived there for 2 years, and worked at APA, Austin Pets Alive, I came to Austin for that job and loved that as well.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But my body was a little too old to, be able to stand and do, 30 surgeries a day and then spend 5 hours, putting catheters in sick puppies. So I left that job, and then I met my now husband, who was in Houston at the time, and so I moved to Houston. But the whole time I was there in Austin, I was starting to brew the idea of mobile practice.
Mhm.
And so my friend Tina and I were in my apartment talking about names, because I had met her at APA, still friends with her as well. Talking about names. I was like, I want it to be, because I didn't have any idea at this point that I was moving to Houston. This was the plan to stay in Austin. And I wanted it to be very Austin-y, right? Like the name to be very Austin-y.
Sure.
And so the name of my first company was South by South Vets, with the tagline, "Pets rock, we roll." And I thought, that is brilliant. You're brilliant,
Yeah.
hilarious, and brilliant. And so anyway, I ended up moving to Houston. And when I decided to open a mobile practice here, I polled a bunch of people, and they said, "Oh yeah, still, that name is perfect. Like, still do it, even though you're not in Austin anymore." So I did it. 4 years later, I get a very nice email. I will say this, a very nice email from South by Southwest asking me to please stop using their name.
Which you weren't.
Well, I wasn't, but at the same time, I was like, this is not, they say it's confusingly similar. I'm like, this is not confusingly similar. Nobody's ever called me and asked me what the lineup was. And I'll put money on it. Nobody's ever called you
No.
and asked how much it costs to clean your dog's teeth. So anyway, they're very nice about it. I mean, they really were extremely nice. They gave me a ton of time to rebrand. And now that I've rebranded and I'm trademarked, I understand now why you have to protect your mark.
Mhm.
If someone gets away with using it, then you lose the protection. So I get it.
Right.
Yes, I'm not it wasn't confusingly similar in what we do, but it was confusingly similar in the name. And so now that I've been through this whole process of trademarking, and I've actually had to protect my mark once already, I now understand, why they came after me. But at the time, I thought, well, I just thought I was so smart using this, doing this little play on words. But
I would have thought it was clever. Personally, I would have thought it was clever. I would have never thought twice about it, and I certainly would.
yep,
So we're talking for you guys that don't live in Texas and haven't been there, don't know the music scene. We have a big deal every year called South by Southwest, where it's a it's a platform for people to introduce new music, get found. It's where Twitter started. There's all kinds of things with it. So that's what we're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, it's like tech, music, yeah,
Yeah.
gaming, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I just thought it was, like you said, I thought it was super clever. But yeah, you can't do that. So anybody out there that's trying to do a play on a big company's name, maybe don't do it.
I think twice.
Yeah.
So anyway, so now you've got, by the way, so let's say the new name, by the way, and I love the name personally. And then let's talk about what it is so people understand and all the advantages. I mean, obviously some of it's pretty self-explanatory,
Yeah.
but if you don't, when you start digging deeper into it, there's a lot of things that you don't really think about that I think are really added benefits to having a mobile vet.
Yeah, for sure. So the tagline I loved, and that was actually the tagline is what got me in trouble with South by South West, because they're like, it's clearly a music theme, and so you're infringing on our mark. And so the name now is Rockin Pets, Rollin Vets, and our tagline is Pets Rock, We Roll, because we are a completely mobile practice. We have 8 trucks here now in Houston. That can do everything except hospitalize. We can do surgery, dentistry. We have x-rays on the trucks, ultrasounds on the trucks, blood work, dental x-rays, full pharmacy, laser. We can do all of those things, right at your house. And so I think a lot of times people have this sort of misperception or misconception that a mobile vet pulls up in their car, and that they can't do a lot. And there are a lot of mobile practitioners that do work out of their cars, and they're amazing people and very smart. And, I've had people say, well, I probably should take them to a real vet. I'm like, we're very much real vets. And, a lot of times can provide better care because we're only looking at your pet right now. We don't have surgery going on in the back and somebody cleaning somebody's teeth and a hit by car that just walked in the door and, animals waking up from anesthesia and all that stuff. And so my sort of, view of it is no matter how they come to your house, you're getting one-on-one care, and we're not seeing as many patients during a day as a brick and mortar practice is. And so, we're not trying to manage as many cases during a day as a brick and mortar practice might be. And while all of that, right, like I have nothing but 100% respect for every veterinarian, because I think that we are, expected to provide human level care with at very, 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 very fraction of the cost, and what we can make in an appointment versus a human doctor. And so I think that vets are some of the most resilient, brilliant, flexible, innovative, creative people on the planet.
Well, first of all, when I think about you, because I've obviously been to your facility where you keep all the trucks and stuff, and you're actually just a mobile clinic. Yours is
Yeah.
a whole clinic. It's not like it, if you're thinking for you guys listening out there, if you're thinking about it, it's a van or something like that. Thing is basically it's a mobile clinic.
Yep.
So think about similar to blood collection, similar but more. And there are vets out there that have a mobile clinic that will do some stuff, but they don't do surgeries or x-rays and that. But that's why if you're wherever you are, if you're not in the Texas area and especially where these guys are, really do the research to make sure you're getting the services you want from that.
Yeah. And a lot of people that don't have big full service units like we have, they will have relationships with, practices in town that will either let them refer to them, and they know the quality of care that those practices provide. Or when I first started, my very first truck was a Mercedes Sprinter that did not have surgical capabilities. We could, but it was too crowded to do surgery in it. And so I just walked into a neighborhood vet clinic. I had just moved into town, like 2 years prior. I didn't know that many people. Just walked into his practice that was in my neighborhood, and I was like, "Hey," introduce myself. "Here's what I want to do. Love to be able to rent your surgery suite once a week and send patients back here if they need x-rays and that kind of thing. And he's like, yeah, let's do it.
Right.
Right. And so a lot of places have, if they don't have full service trucks, they will have relationships with other clinics in town so that you can get the full service experience. They just may not be able to do everything like we can do, right at your doorstep.
Well, one of the things too, when I started thinking about it in more detail, since I knew we were talking, a lot of things came up, and if you can expand on some of the ideas I had. First off, um, I would assume if for me, as an example, if you go to a veterinary clinic, and they're all busy these days,
Yep.
you only have so much time you can spend with the pet.
Yeah.
Where if it's in somebody's house, you're going to spend more time with them. So, not they're going to get a better quality of care, they're going to get more time. So, for you, from an evaluation standpoint and all that, I would assume that you're actually getting more for your dollar, anyways.
So, well, and I agree with you. I do think that, when the animal is also closer to home, especially cats, once they've gotten in that carrier and gotten in the car and they end up at the hospital, that is not the same cat that you will find in their house.
Right.
Those cats are already at an anxiety level of 10. Now there's some cats that are like, whatever, I'll go anywhere and they're fine. But most cats, they don't want to leave their house. So I think that the other benefit is I get to see the animal more in its natural state and know, what their yard looks like, the husbandry that animal lives in, the food that animal eats. So many times people don't know what they're feeding their pet. And that's fine. I don't blame them. I mean, there's so much choice now where, when I was growing up, it was Purina dog chow. That's all you had. Now there's a million different choices and, they'll be like, well, it's a blue bag and it's this. And so I can go in and actually see what they're feeding their pet. I can't tell you how many times I catch them feeding things that they should not be feeding their pets,
Uh,
especially animals that are food sensitive. I'll go in and be like, okay, show me what's in your pantry. And a lot of times I catch them feeding things that they should not be feeding. So I just feel like it's a great experience for not only me, right? Because I'm not worrying about 15 other things happening in the back of a clinic. And I've owned a brick and mortar before, so I get it. It's a better experience for the pet and many times for the client as well, because it does save them time. Even though we might spend a little more time with them, they're not having to go anywhere, right? So that the total time that it takes us to do the same thing that they may want to go into a brick and mortar clinic for is usually less by a lot, especially if you live in Houston, you're dealing with traffic.
Well, yeah, exactly, exactly. But the other thing too is, well, what I was thinking about while you're just saying that is that it's like when you're doing vitals too, baseline, if they're not stressed out, and any person that's got a pet that's ever gone to a pet clinic with any animal in there, when there may be some that like dogs that don't mind traveling in a car, but once they get in that clinic, they're always different animals. I've never been one where they didn't think differently.
Yeah, and they have white coat syndrome just like people do. A lot of people's blood pressure will go up when they're at the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Same with animals. And when you get them in their house, cats usually once they realize you're doing something to them, it sometimes can be harder to get a true measurement of blood pressure on them because it will go up. But for the most part, I think that we can get a better view of who this pet is in their normal state versus in an anxiety ridden state because they've been in the car and now they're in the clinic where there's noises and smells and all that stuff. Even if they're just, when they just go out to the truck, most animals, even cats, are just tolerate it much better. I mean, it's a rare occasion that I have to knock a cat out anymore, to do anything to it. We'll give them maybe some gabapentin to slow them down, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a very rare occasion that I have to actually sedate a cat these days.
Well, the other thing too, another benefit that I thought about is, most households these days, not most, but I get a lot of them households have multiple animals.
Mhm.
So instead of bringing in, which is almost impossible, bringing two pets to one thing, or you have to go one day and then you have to go another day.
Mhm.
Do you have a lot of people that make an appointment for their household full of pets?
Yep. And one thing that we'll try to do is to get because, they get pets at different times and their vaccine schedules are all over the place. We'll try to make it where their vaccines are at the same time or their whatever they need, their exams, their blood work, all that stuff, to try to make it where they kind of all fall into the same time frame so that we can just see them one time versus having to come back 3 or 4 times, for each different pet. And this is one of the reasons why I did start this was because I was doing relief work here and I had always wanted to have mobile, and it was almost like the signs just kept saying, yes, do this, yes, do this, yes, do this. And I remember I was doing relief at a practice here in town, and this woman had come in with her sick dog and dropped it there for the day. And we were sending medication home with the dog, and she had 3 children, young children, one in a car seat, right? And she's trying to juggle dog, kids, pay the bill, get out, get home, make dinner. She left her medication. And we called her and said, "Hey, we're so sorry, you left your medication." She's like, "Well, it's just too bad. I can't come back. I've got these children and I'm making dinner and blah, blah, blah." And I remember thinking that right there, I could have handled that whole thing where the woman never have to leave her house. And if we forgot to leave her meds, then we just take them back.
Yeah. Oh, I see all the benefits. The other thing that I thought about too, well, actually, I read it as well, is, when you're in an environment where there's other animals that may have some kind of, parvo or whatever it is,
Uh-huh.
even though most clinics are, they're real cautious with any kind of contagious things,
Yep.
you don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. The only thing that we worry about if we have it in our truck right before we're going to see somebody else
Mhm.
is if we suspect ringworm.
Mhm.
And we will bleach the whole place down, or if I suspect kennel cough. So we try to keep our coughing dogs at the end of the day because even though they're in and out, it's on your clothes, all that stuff. And so we're still very careful about if I think something is contagious, but it is much easier to minimize that, right, cross contamination in that small vehicle than in a whole, huge clinic where you've got to try to sanitize every place where that animal went.
Now you guys are doing X-rays and all that stuff in the truck too, right?
Mhm. We are. Mhm. Well, no, we have digital systems, in 4 of the trucks right now, and then we just built a surgery suite that we are, a standalone surgery suite inside our warehouse, and we took one of those X-ray machines and kept it there too, just for emergency purposes.
So now if you've got some stuff, you can actually do it over at the place that I've been to?
Mhm. Yep.
Oh, wow, that's cool. So one of the things I also thought about, well, as most people, and I've talked about this a couple times when I've had vets on the show, is one of the big things you guys do, which most people don't think about, but it's actually pretty common, is dentistry.
Mhm.
And so you're doing those in the truck as well.
We can. Yep. We can do surgery and dentistry in the truck. Now that we have the surgery suite, it's just a lot more comfortable and it's bigger, and there's cages so we can watch them recover for longer.
Uh-huh.
The downside to me for doing procedures like that in the truck
Mhm.
is we recover those pets for about an hour, and the anesthetic protocol we use is the drugs are gone pretty quickly, except for long-term pain management. We do use that for our spays and neuters and stuff like that, but those dogs are up and walking and wagging their tail and many times eating within the hour, and so we watch them for about an hour. But this way, with the surgery suite too, we can keep them there a little longer.
Observe them.
Makes me a little more comfortable, yeah. So, we will still do it out on the road. It's just, it's an easier experience, more really for us than, for anything, but the surgery suites are even though they're really nice in the trucks and we have everything, all the bells and whistles, right? They're just still a little bit on the crowded side, and so you can get a little claustrophobic in some of those trucks
Sure.
in that surgery suite, yeah.
Well, are you guys doing a lot of spay and neuters in the truck?
We do some. We do more neuters than we do spays in the trucks,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, and like cat neuters, I'll do those all day long. I mean,
Well, the reason why I'm asking, because I was thinking about this too. So, and again, this is not major stuff, but it's subtle differences. So, if I bring my animal into a clinic, now they've got the stress, they go through whatever the procedure may be, spay, neuter, whatever. Then you've got to drive them home and they've had surgery, even though it's not that big of a surgery, they still had surgery. So the fact that if you're doing it at their house, you don't have that stress and the potential of any kind of damage being just in the car, something happens in the car or whatever too.
yep, and they're right back in the house, and that's, for the people who still want us to do it at their house, it really is for like they're like, "My animal will not travel."
Oh,
Like I cannot get them they are not gonna tolerate the car, that sort of thing, and so, we have 2 options. So we can do it also a little less expensive in the surgery suite because I can do more in a day than I can, out on the road.
uh-huh.
So we just, it's just nice to have both options available.
So, one of the things I'm sure that comes up with people, they say, well, if I'm going to do a mobile vet, it's going to cost me more money, which I'm sure it does at some level because you've got gas and that.
Mhm.
But if, the way I was looking at it and I started thinking about it, and you can get into this with where I'm wrong or right or whatever, but it would seem to me that because you aren't in the clinic, you're spending more time with them. You're probably, other than the cost for traveling there, the service itself is probably the same. So, if you're looking at your return over your investment or cost,
Yep.
seems to me it may balance out when you think about the amount of time you have there, and also not counting your own personal time of traveling as well.
Yeah, we're very middle of the road as far as pricing goes. It is a premium service, but in my opinion, you're not paying super premium pricing for our service.
Mhm.
And that's by design. Like, I want this to be affordable, reasonably affordable, but still be able to, keep the doors open. So it is, people go, well, you should be cheaper because you don't have all the overhead. Well, I have more overhead than most brick and mortars have because I have a warehouse with 8 trucks, 5 X-ray machines. Most clinics have 1. I have 5 ultrasound machines. Most clinic have 1. So all of the multiples, right, add up. I mean, so I have way more in overhead. And then you talk about wear and tear on those vehicles and generator repairs and generator replacements and gas prices. And it is dramatically more expensive than doing a brick and mortar the way we're doing it. So it's hard to get people to understand that though when they're like, "Well, you just have a truck." Like, "Well, no, I have a lot of trucks and I have a lot of equipment and I have a lot of staff." So while we are a premium service, like I said, you're not paying, in my opinion, proportional to how premium the service actually is. We have priced ourselves to be very competitive and, like I said, reasonably affordable for the service that you get.
Well, I mean, to me, especially, I was thinking about this, probably younger families that have kids, because just like you were telling your story about the woman with the kids,
Mhm.
and then I would assume senior citizens too, not being able to get around as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's really every age group. There's a reason that this works well for them. Yes, seniors, senior dogs, especially big old senior dogs.
Mhm.
You know, my age people, Gen X, they're all busy working. They have other, stuff going on. And then you've got younger families with children. They're busy. Their kids are going in every different direction now that kind of everybody's back in school and sports and activities. You're back to, I have 3 kids and they go 3 different places all at the same time. And then you've got millennials that are really used to now having everything delivered. So it's
Right.
for every sort of generation, there's a reason why this is a beneficial service to them.
So I'll bet during COVID, you guys went crazy.
We did. We did because people, in the beginning, people didn't know how this thing was being spread.
Right.
And nobody wanted to leave their house, and we did change kind of the way we were doing business, when it first happened, where for a while we weren't going to people's houses unless it was a dramatic, right? Like, I still always went in for euthanasia. We just
Mhm.
had everybody mask up, and we wore gowns for a while, and, people then it was like, "Okay, well, now this is a thing, and we're all staying home," but then people started working from home, and so it was the
Right.
thing, like, they still had to work even though they were at home. And, everybody got pets, so there was a big boom about how many people, adopted a pet during the pandemic. So, yeah, it exploded for us. I mean, we hired a lot of people, bought a lot of trucks during that time.
Well, it's funny is, well, not funny actually, but I think I mentioned this to you before. This is when we were talking, but I didn't know, and I was talking to my daughter-in-law, and they'd actually used your guys' service because one of their dogs had to be euthanized,
Yep.
and it was you guys, just randomly,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of companies that do that too, and, we have nothing also but good things to say about the other companies that are in town that can help with end of life care, especially when we're not available, but it is something that, I feel people say to me all the time, "I don't know how you do it." I'm like, I feel very honored to be able to provide that service because I know the way I do it is painless, stress-free. The animal gets to have a good death, which is what euthanasia means, is a good death, and that the family trusts me enough to help them in that transition. I find it to be, I feel extremely honored when we are asked to help in that situation.
Well, and I can tell you from, I guess, sort of a firsthand experience that, my daughter-in-law and my son, this was his dog. spoke so highly of it. But again, it comes back to where we're talking before about the stress of going into a clinic or whatever.
Mhm.
Here it's end of life, and you have a quality weight in their place that they're familiar with,
Yep.
and everybody gets to say goodbye in an environment that's more comfortable, not sterile.
Oh my gosh. Well, and just having that last car ride. I mean, taking those animals in,
Right.
it's like thinking that their last experience is having to go in, and sometimes it still has to happen, right? Like if they go to the ER or whatever, but when it's something that can be planned and be planned at home, it's just such a peaceful to me, such a peaceful experience, and I just feel like they're so lucky, that they get to go in their own bed with all their people who love them around them. It's an extremely to me, it's an extremely peaceful experience almost every time I do it.
Yeah, and it's a fact of life. So it's not like we're talking about something at some point. If anybody that's had an animal or had multiple animals knows that at some point that's going to happen. You have to have
Yep.
and you want to look for the best option because it's just a horrible time for anybody.
Right. That's right. And, we take care of everything. So after it's over, we, help with the aftercare and getting them back home and all that stuff if people want their ashes back. So yeah, I mean, we're very lucky. My sister is a human physician, and I think that we get to treat our animals better in death than we treat our people.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah.
At least my experience is that. So for guys that are out there listening and they're going through, a traditional clinic, by the way, which I think are great. I have several friends that are in it and all that. If they were looking and thinking, okay, this is maybe the option, what would you tell them if they were to call and say, I'm thinking about doing this, but I don't know if I want to do it? What would you tell them? I know I think we've covered everything, but just kind of how you would explain it to them.
Like, if someone wanted to go into business doing this?
No, 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 no. Somebody that's actually a pet owner that they're thinking, okay, I kind of want to do this thing,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure if I want to do it or not. Why would I do it?
Yeah. Just to use a mobile vet, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just exactly what we've been talking about, benefits. I mean, and for the most part, the cost is not prohibitive, for people who can afford vet care anyway. The cost is not typically prohibitive to then go in and use a mobile vet. So it's better to me, in my experience, it's easier for the pet because they get to be at home. It's easier for the client because they get to be at home, and sometimes they're not even home.
Right. Oh, really?
If there's a um, nanny or a housekeeper or an assistant or
Mm.
somebody that's there, as long as we know the client, I'm totally fine with that. They go to work and they say, come in and do what you need to do, and then we can not even have to interrupt their schedule. Lots of times too, they'll just meet us at the door and say, here, take them out, I'm cooking dinner or whatever. And so we don't it's about saving them time, and their energy can be spent on something else. So it's to me, it's just a better overall experience. And like I said, I can go in their yard and see if they've got poisonous plants in their yard. We look in their pantries if they want us to, and kind of go through foods. So I think it's just a for me personally, it's a better overall experience. I think I'm a better doctor being a mobile vet than I have ever been in a brick and mortar practice. And I don't get bored doing this, where I have a tendency to get bored inside 3 walls or inside 4 walls. And so this, I've been doing this now for 8 years, and I'm still not bored of it. It's something new. I'm in a different place every day. It's always something different. Your day is never the same. So it's, of course I think it's amazing because I do it, but
Okay, last one for you, and then we can get towards the end of the thing. So, if you're somebody else that's not in the Houston area, and we'll get into the Houston area here in a second, that's another part of the U.S., and they're looking at mobile vets, are there any specific questions you would recommend a pet owner would ask that company to make sure that they were getting what they needed to do?
I think it comes down to what the pet needs.
Okay.
Right? If you have an older geriatric pet that might need, laser therapy, something like that, like I might ask them what all their capabilities are, what equipment they have, how many people they have on staff, what are their hours, like are they going to be available to them when they need them? If they're not available, who do they go to? Who can they call? And then I think too, it's a personality decision as well, like connecting with the doctor,
Mm.
making sure that, you get to meet them and at least talk to them on the phone and see what they're, sort of how y'all connect a little bit. That to me is also a big deal because, they're in your house.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of want it to be someone that you get along with because they're coming into your house.
Okay, so for everybody let's tell everybody what area you cover, how they get a hold of you, social media wise, website, all that kind of stuff. Let's give them all that information.
Great. Okay. So we serve the entire greater Houston area. Basically, if you live in Houston and you think it all about inside Beltway 8 and then a little bit some of the outside areas of Beltway 8, we do have some clients in Baytown. We've got a couple of clients in Galveston, a lot of clients out in Katy, some clients in Cypress, those kind of places. But for the most part, we're pretty much inside Beltway 8. You can reach us by email. You can email info@rollinvets.com. And there's no G. Sorry for my dog. There's no G on that. It's Rollin Vets, ROLLINVETS. They can call us or text us at 713-987-3237. And if they text us at that number, we actually have a product called Pets App where I can see every text message that comes in through Pets App. And so even when we're closed, if somebody has a question or they, just need some guidance, most of the time I'm watching that phone. So I'll see those come in and I'll answer them. And then we're, of course, active on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, those kind of places.
And what's your handle or whatever they call it on that stuff?
I think it's just Rollin Vets. To be honest with you, I don't handle all that stuff.
Okay.
But I think if you search us on any of those, social media platforms, you'll find us.
Cool. Okay, so now my favorite time that everybody cringes every time. I don't know if you have a joke or not. And my dad animal joke that people are probably clicking off now because they're so tired of hearing my bad jokes. But if you've got a joke, that would be great. If you don't, I've got one always. So do you have one by any chance?
I don't. And we talked about this and I forgot to look one up and I'm terrible at remembering jokes. If my husband was here, he would be able to pull one right off the top of his head.
Well, I have one because I'm always prepared. Half the time people want to do it. Half the time people forget to do it. And everybody out there listening are hoping I would forget to do it. But anyways, so here's my question for you. What dog keeps the best time?
What dog keeps the best time? I should know this, shouldn't I?
It's an easy one.
I don't know.
It's as bad as all the other ones. A watchdog.
I see. I should know that. That's a good one. A watchdog. I love it.
Okay, guys. Now, I say this every time, and please, please do this. I had somebody send something in recently. I'm sure you've got better jokes out there. So if you would send them to me at Mark Kyle, mkyle at forrealpodcast.com, or if you've got great ideas for the show and you want to send, please email me. I respond all the time when I get one. I just had somebody that gave us an idea for the show that we just did. But please do that. But most importantly, I just want to thank you, Katie, for being on. I know there's a lot of people out there that have heard about mobile vets. I know in the horse world, that's pretty common, but what you're doing is completely different. And I'm hoping this helps everybody out there. I know you took your time to do this on our freezing day in Texas, but I really, really appreciate it.
Hey, I'm so glad that you had me on. I really appreciate it. And if anybody needs help, tell them to please just give us a call. And Mark, I'll look forward to talking to you again soon about doing more stem cells.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And for everybody else out there, I really appreciate everybody listening. Please pass the word. We're constantly looking for new content and, of course, more people listening. We're supported by Let's Walk, that's here to love your animals like our own.
Austin, Houston, and Denver. Let's Walk is here to love your animals like our own. From daily walks, play, in-house sleepovers, and more. Go to work, out on the town, or take a vacation knowing your pets are in the best hands. This woman-owned small business does it all. Check us out on Instagram at Let's Walk Austin, Houston, and Denver.
That concludes this episode of For Real with your host, Mark Kyle. For previous and future episodes of For Real, listen via all major podcast streaming sites.